Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm Zeus Caravallo from ZK Research, and I'm here at AWS reInvent in Las Vegas. This is part of my AI Disruptor series. I'm here with Pasquale DeMaio. You're the Vice President of Amazon Connect.
Yes, thank you.
I've been really excited to have you on. I think, I started up this AI Disruptor series to talk about how AI is disrupting the general tech industry, and we focus a lot. The industry focuses a lot on chips and servers and things like that, but it's having a big impact on the applications we use as well, right? And I think when you look at a lot of what's been written about, the contact center is one of the areas that's expected to be disrupted the most. And so I want to start with that, Pasquale. Why does the contact center need disrupting, first of all, and then what's your approach to doing that?
I think when we started Amazon Connect and launched it back in 2017, we very intentionally were trying to be disruptive because we felt like there was an opportunity to really change the way people engage with their customers. And we wanted to start with everything from usage-based engagement, so that it didn't matter if an agent was involved or if you were automating or if you were being proactive. All these things we knew would be coming down the road. And so we were very passionate about that. As we move forward, one of the things we also realized very quickly was we wanted to be fully native with AI in the contact center from day one. And in fact, we were. And so now that we've seen new technologies come out like generative AI, we're very ready for that type of disruption. So it's actually quite exciting to see these things. And the thing that's great about it is, well, I think it's a revolutionary technology. I also think it is going to be something that we can fit really into the current experiences people have, but making them much, much better. The way I think about that is, how do we give the time and the focus to the human beings in the contact center who need it to spend on the things you really want them working on? So human beings are really good at talking to people, understanding really complex problems when things aren't working the way they're supposed to be, the way they always have. And what they aren't great at always is filling out notes, doing things like trying to check off the boxes as to what a call was about when they're trying to rush to the next call, or sitting there fighting the technology. So when I see disruption now, really it's about giving time back to agents to be able to focus on the people they're dealing with and helping. And that's what they really want to be doing anyways.
Yeah, that's interesting that you took that approach because a lot of the focus on the disruption has been how do customers interact better, but sometimes we forget about the people that are actually working in the contact center, and frankly, their job's not a lot of fun sometimes. And I think people enter that field because they like talking to customers, they want to help them solve their problems. A lot of the mundane tasks we force them to do, frankly, they don't have to do now, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And with every technology as it comes in, you want to use it for what it's great with. And what we see with generative AI is it's great at understanding human interactions. It's really good at summarizing complex things, figuring out really complex questions, things like that. And if we can take some of that lifting off the agent's hands and allow them to be able to be routed the right contacts, be told what the contact's going to be about, automate the things that aren't useful to have a human being involved in. When I call in and ask for my bank balance, I don't need a person to understand me to do that.
Yeah.
They can just tell me, I can be told my bank balance. But when I have a complex issue, maybe it's something very personal, maybe something involving my family or something like that, and I'm trying to work through something that's unusual, then having that human being be able to have the technology recede and just provide the information step by step the way you need to interact with it so that then they can focus on me as a human, we're going to have a much better experience. And if I'm upset, that's going to calm me down. If that agent is trying to deal with a complex situation, that's going to relax them. In fact, when we built some of the technologies we introduced, we actually used heart rate monitors on the agents.
Oh, wow.
And we measured their experience with the new technology we put with them. And you know what happened was we actually saw that heart rate decrease. And I think that's an important lesson to learn, to say, how are we helping people be people so people can be better at what people are great at?
Yeah, I've always felt that how you get treated in a company and what your job's like directly reflects how you treat the customer. So it's good you're doing that. Now,
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Now we are here at reInvent, and on day one there was a number of updates to Amazon Connect. There was a generative AI announcement as well. So can you talk about that and what you're bringing to Connect now?
Yeah, I mean, we as a company are broadly investing very heavily in AI and generative AI specifically, and we have a ton of launches this week, including Nova, our new modeling. In Connect, what we've done is we've taken a look at every part of the experience and said, where would human understanding, the ability to understand complex conversations, help? And that helps in a lot of different places. It can help up front in an IVR, an automated experience, when you have something like a balance transfer. You don't want to use generative AI. You don't want it to think heavily about balance transfers and try try and suss out what they mean. You want it to just transfer, be very observable, pass it on. So we would use normal, AI for that, what we call, legacy AI maybe. In 2 years, everyone's just going to call it AI again anyways, but we would use that. But then if you have a question that's like, what's the dress code for Casual Friday? It's a tremendous answer to pull information out from maybe different sources and then turn it into a conversation that matches up to this thing, understand who this person is, where are they working, it's their first day, that kind of stuff. Or even what's the right plan for me, comparing plans A, B, and C, something like that. That's a place where generative AI can really shine in one of those experiences. And so we've seen like customers like DoorDash using Connect have done is actually answered a lot of their Dasher questions, those are the folks who deliver the food, right? And DoorDash wants those people to be really happy because they could go drive for somebody else. And so what they want to do is get those people to feel like DoorDash is really giving them a great place to work and to engage with other customers when they pick out where they're going to do what they're going to do that day. And so by answering all those questions, they were able to get much more efficient at answering the questions right away up front. And then when it got to an agent, they reduced their transfers by 49%.
Well, that's pretty meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think one area that a lot of brands struggle with is proactive outreach. And I know Connect, you just added a new feature called automated segmentation that's supposed to help with that. So can you talk about what that is and then how it helps them be more proactive?
Yeah, the thing we looked at is when we there are a number of areas where being reactive might be the right choice, but a lot of times customers' problems, you may know they have a problem as a business before the customer even knows. And if you can reach out to them and correct that, that's a really wonderful experience for them. I'll give you a great example where it's something that you probably can relate to. You're on a plane, the plane is landing, you're realizing it's late, you can't call anyone, you can't do anything but your rental car, now you're going to potentially not be able to get to your rental car in time. And so when you land, if you immediately were to get a text message that says, hey, we saw your plane was delayed, don't worry, your car is still in H7 waiting for you. All of a sudden, this relief is the experience you have there. And that's something that is actually pretty straightforward for us to be able to understand and be able to deliver as a business. You want to be doing that proactively, but only when it's the right time to do it. I wouldn't want to be getting buzzed every 5 seconds either from a business. So what we've done is we've actually taken our ability to pull in data from all over the enterprise into customer profiles where we can really understand that customer, whether it be from CRMs, other ordering systems, reservation systems, all those pieces, bring that together, merge all that information, and then we can actually run segmentation on top of that. And what that does is identify groups or single people who have certain characteristics. And then we can determine when the right time to reach out to them is across any of the channels Connect supports. And so that's a really powerful outcome. And the thing that I love about that is that you can even escalate over time. So for example, if you have someone and they have a payment method expiring on a very important service they get from you, you can say, okay, well, we should email them as that gets closer. Then maybe 2 days before, if they're going to lose their access, then text them. And then if the day of and they're about to now fully lose access, then give them a call and really help them get through that something. Maybe they're having a problem, maybe they're not realizing it. And at that point, any point during that process, if the person does actually complete the task, maybe through a completely different channel, maybe they call in, maybe they go online and do it and you don't know about it, you want to then change that data. That data set is going to change underneath. You'll drop them out of that experience so don't get buzzed and annoyed by something that's not accurate anymore. I mean, how many times have you gotten a mail saying, hey, you need to do this thing? You're like, I already did it.
And what I like about what you're doing too by pulling in data from CRM and other systems too is you're addressing the broader CX problem. That I think when it comes to customer experience, everybody uses the term, but most vendors play in just a ZKast vendor addresses service, and sales and marketing addresses the front end of a customer journey, where very few companies have actually ever been able to look across that customer journey, right? And so by bringing those data sets together, you're actually able to just understand the customer a lot better than brands have historically been able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And we also want to feed back into that process so that information gets where it should be. And the thing that I think is particularly interesting about that is if you think about when a call is ongoing, there's so much information that's being conveyed in that conversation that often gets lost, right? And so if we actually can then take that information and capture it on behalf of the agent so that they don't have to be trying to take notes afterwards or remembering to create some sort of follow-up thing and putting a sticky on their side of their monitor. But instead we can say, okay, this person, someone mentions about another, I see, sir, you have our basic subscription. I want to make sure you're all set. And then the person says, I've been thinking about upgrading to a better subscription. that agent, if they're on the call to try and fix a payment process, they're just going to let that blow right by. But instead, we can actually hear something like that and say, okay, this is something that should be followed up on, and introduce it in there. Or if we're learning different things about how the performance of the agent is in solving certain problems, we can actually automatically evaluate that and actually create an evaluation of that whole thing. What we want to do is actually take all the after-call work off the plate of the agent completely, because they're almost always going to be better. You hired them to interact with human beings, and taking notes was probably not on the interview. Neither was probably being able to put stickies on a monitor and then make sure you actually follow up on them.
And nobody does that stuff very well either. So, or very few people do. To say nobody.
I mean, directionally, you're approaching. You have to not be approaching nobody, right? It's really hard. It's really hard to expect people to be incredibly good at interacting with people at the same time as taking a checkbox list in their head.
Yeah. Now let's shift the focus a little bit to self-service. Self-service is something that, as a customer, I find the experience varies widely from really bad to just sort of mediocre. And I know you just announced the integration of Amazon Q into Connect that should make self-service a lot more dynamic and relevant. And so can you go into some detail on that?
Yeah, the Q and Connect work we've done is actually quite, it goes in two different directions, I would say. One thing is we've made it easier to use Q everywhere in the entirety of Connect. So now it plugs directly into the automated experiences at the front end, so you can have those great generative experiences up there, and you also can have the standard AI experiences as well at the same time, and actually pass back and forth. So one thing that might happen is, you say, hey, I wanted to move some funds between two different accounts, and the legacy AI might struggle with that. Now, if you say balance transfer, maybe it gets it right, but that intent understandings can be tough. But with something like Q and Connect, it actually would be able to understand that and say, okay, let me actually pass that back now to the legacy AI to actually do the balance transfer. And then all that information and authentication, everything can pass into the agent as well. For the agent, we've improved the experience in Q and Connect. We've improved the performance of it in pretty much every regard. The other thing we've done, though, is we've actually given power to folks who, a lot of folks are now making investments to try and experiment with the AI, and they want to be able to do that inside of Q and Connect. And so we're starting to give them access to things like Guardrails that can then protect that experience. And so we're making this much easier to have access because Q and Connect is fully integrated. And so they can focus on the things they want to do, like creating Guardrails versus standing up, an LLM in the back end and trying to plug all that together. So taking the undifferentiated heavy lifting off their plates and letting them focus on things that matter to their customers.
Yeah, drill down on the guardrails too. I know you introduced some new guardrails as well, right? And I think these are important because when you look at any kind of industry data that you see around AI adoption, everyone's kicking the tires, but I think it's only like 10% of companies that have actually managed to push the ball across the goal line. And where they get bogged down is security, governance, things that guardrails protect, right? And so discuss those.
From our standpoint, and as I noted, I think if you have something that is better suited by something that's more observable and rigid, then don't throw Gen AI at problems that they don't make sense at. When you do have things that are interesting, I actually remember a real example that I saw where someone had set up a chatbot and they hadn't thought about the guardrails or anything about that, and people were just coming in and asking it questions like, who is the greatest baseball player of all time? And we're starting to engage with them on baseball conversations. And obviously, that's a waste of their time and money, and that's not what they want. But you don't want to end up in the weeds with these things, giving back information that's potentially incorrect or not directionally what you're trying to convey to your customers. It's really important to be able to say, hey, these kind of conversations are off limits. And I mean, we've all seen the nightmares of places where people don't take those precautions and they end up with really sometimes even inappropriate interactions. And so for an enterprise, it's obviously incredibly important that they have the control that they have to prevent those kind of things from getting out of bounds, or for sharing information that they shouldn't be sharing, all sorts of things that are going to be really valuable. And of course, as you noted, the CISO of that company is very, very, it's very important to them that we aren't ever leaking information out that is important too. And at Amazon, we always consider security to be the number one requirement for everything we do. If you lose the trust of the customer by ever leaking information it shouldn't, you obviously may never get that trust back. So that's so important.
Yeah, I find this topic interesting because applications today that have search in them aren't built to be universal search. Like if I'm a lawyer, I look up relevant cases in LexisNexis. I'm not asking who won the baseball game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it seems when we started playing with generative AI, people just did whatever they could think of just to test the systems. But I think over time, where we get to is everything has Gen AI built into it. That they're built off curated private data sets, and then users, because of guardrails, will only use them for the tasks they're meant to be used for. And I think that's really the way the world should be, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it's right on to say that what we're going to see is as people become good at using this technology, they're going to become very efficient at using it where it really works. And to your point, there's going to be places where having a specialized experience is going to be very important. For example, we have Q and Connect. It is different from Q for developers because we know when a developer is asking questions, we have better context of what they care about.
Now, you mentioned DoorDash. Can you give me any other examples of customers? One of the reasons I like talking this much is you always have great customer examples.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones is Orbitz, who actually saw 10 to 15% projected savings across their average handle time just by turning Q on. I think that's a really cool example. We have another customer who actually removed the entirety of their after call work already, and the summaries were a huge part of that because the summaries that are coming back now are going to be instead of like the long kind of cleaned up version of a transcript, they're actually very specifically what actually happened in the call. And so what's happening with that is now when someone comes back to look at that, they're seeing something that's extremely concise that they can understand right away. And now we're actually allowing the ability to automatically categorize calls so you can understand what actually happened in the call as well and tag them with that. And so this is making all of those types of things like after call work just go away.
Yeah, and so we talked about customers, we talked about the agents. What about supervisors? I think, and this has been an underappreciated aspect of contact center transformation. Now that more and more agents are working at home, you don't have the same audible access, if you want to call it that a supervisor would have had historically. And so how are you making the supervisor's life better?
Yeah, obviously one of the top things is that ability to actually create evaluations from a contact without them having to actually listen to editing at all. So we can now do that for every single contact that happens in the contact center. So we know that
before it was random.
Yeah, it was random and it was human driven, and it was also one of those ones, did you get lucky on the call, as you're sort of saying. So now when you go from like 2 to 5% to 100%, now you can really start to bring data back into the system. And we'll talk a little bit more about this maybe if we have a chance, but then fundamentally changing the way these supervisors and the contact center leaders are impacting the business of the entire company because they have information they never had access to before. But even in the most basic format of being able to say, I'm going to evaluate every contact, now when you go to talk to an agent about how they can improve their performance, you might have 5 examples you can show them and say, here's an area where you could do better. Also 5 examples where they did great. And be like, hey, look at this. One of the things I really want to get us into is a world where we're encouraging our agents and rewarding them every time. We can even tell the agent after a call, hey, great job on that call. And we can also alert the supervisor during the call in real time if there's something they should be paying attention to, and so maybe they need to intercede, or even automatically interject with an agent if something happens on a call that requires an escalation. Sometimes things can get very heated or something like that, or a customer might say something that requires, even something where you want to pull in law enforcement or something like that. We can actually catch those things and not rely on the agent recognizing they're in this difficult situation, and we can alert them and even do a transfer on that. So these are really powerful things that fundamentally make the agent's life, keeps them from running around with their hair on fire, and again, gets them back to that time and focus on the things that they should be doing, which is helping their agents be great, making sure they've got the coverage they need.
Yeah, just a couple more questions. And, you talked to a lot of customers, and I think it's fair to say that Amazon Connect cut its teeth with a lot of companies that had disruption in mind. Mm-hmm. But more and more, you're talking to customers that are more traditional businesses that maybe aren't as pro-disruption as some of your early customers. And so when you talk to those customers, what are a couple of things that perhaps you see they're missing or not in their thought process as they think about this next wave of evolution of the contact center and how AI gets integrated?
I think generally when I talk to folks, the first thing I see is there's a relief when I talk to a lot of them, they're actually finally going to be able to do so many things they wanted to do. So I would start by saying I think a lot of them are forward-thinking, but they've been constrained by a lot of the legacy technologies, and it was just so hard to plug things together. Like the customer profiles, suddenly you can pull data from 70 different products, and we have 70 different connectors to pull that data in, and you can also build one for anything that you've homegrown yourself. So that moves you from like spending months or years trying to bring that data into one place to turning that into something you can do in weeks. So giving them these things that are powerful, actually a lot of them are like the freedom and the ideas they come up with when I talk to them are exciting. That said, I think a lot of them still are really getting their head around the proactive nature and the full breadth of what they can do once they have the ability to listen to every contact and do something based on that, and then change the information they have about their customers so they can be proactive next time. They can follow up. They can reach out. They can say, hey, a like-for-like customer who did this might want to buy this product later on. Having that all in one place is something that this has never existed before. And so I think we're incredibly excited to see what we can work with them to do on that regard. And that's going to decrease the contact volumes for them too, and let them focus on the contacts that really do require them being reactive to. So I think what I'm seeing is people, they're excited about it, and they're getting to change the whole fundamental way they think about their contact centers.
Yeah, I'm excited about this too, because I think customer service, for all the innovation we've had in this industry, it hasn't really changed a lot, right, over the last, well, really since the birth of the contact center, I suppose. And so, just last question. So now that we've reached this tipping point of AI, certainly the product's come a long way. You've got access to all the other Amazon features. How do you want people to think about Connect? What do you think really sets it apart from all the other competition out there?
Well, I think that the number one thing that sets apart is the fact that from day one, it was built from the ground up as a single solution. We didn't start with a product and say, hey, we have to add a bunch more products to it, or we didn't buy other companies and pull it together. And so when I talk about some of these things where I say, hey, we can look at every contact, that doesn't just mean every voice contact. It means every chat, every voice, even all the tasks that came out of this, and then you can measure those tasks and truly understand them. It's all going in through the same routing engine to the agents. It's all using the same automation tools. It's all using the same analytics in the back end. It all fires back into the same proactive engagement capabilities. And you're not like having to become a set of experts in every silo, but instead you can have one set of people who truly understand automation. Think about how much more efficient that makes you and how much better those folks get at it as they start doing automation across every part of their contact center experience. And so from my standpoint, I think that's something where we're going to accelerate our customers. So it's about their velocity. I mean, I love my team to ship at high velocity. You've probably seen how much we've shipped in the last year. Yeah. But if you look at what I'm doing, I'm really shipping this stuff so my customers can move really fast. And in the contact center, that hasn't been the case. Yeah. And now people are saying, I had a customer tell me, you know what, we finished our migration in 45 days and we did it a month early because something came up at the end and we thought it was an emergency to move more quickly. And they said that would never have been possible. And they told me it was such a smooth transition that they got on the call for the rollover. They did it at midnight because they were nervous. And their business partner said, okay, when do we do it? And the person said, oh, it's already done. We're going to bed. And so that's what we want our customers to be, that experience of like taking all these things that have been painful historically and get them focused on the things that matter. All
right, Pasquale. So removing the pain from contact centers for the customers, agents, supervisors, and the IT pros, right?
Yep, that's right.
So anything else you want to add?
No, I really appreciate the time today, and I would say that the one thing I would say is if you wanted to try any of this stuff out, if any of your listeners want to try any of this stuff out, you can use Connect with no contract. You don't have to sign up for anything. You just log into your get an AWS account, and you can set it up in 5 minutes, take your first call, and then literally everything I talked about here is in the product. It's part of the UI. You can then go and drag and drop things and create all these amazing experiences. I find it to be incredibly fun. I might be a little bit of a nerd, but I really love this kind of stuff. But people are doing this stuff. We have over 14,000 customers on Amazon Connect, and most of them have never talked to us.
All right. Well, thanks, Pasquale. I appreciate having you on. So on behalf of Pasquale DeMaio from AWS Connect, I'm Zias Caravallo from ZK Research, saying thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on the next episode of ZKast.